bring out, not only for myself, but for our football team today. I guess general opening statement, and I'll turn it over to you guys. Just excited to be back into football, with our rules now in the summer and us being able to be around our football team so much. It doesn't seem like, maybe that sense of, euphoria that you get sometimes with football since we've been around each other all summer long. But our kids have really done a great job. I was really happy with our summer plan that we were able to execute with our football team, and I think it's already shown up in the first 3 days of practice. Today's an off day for us, and then we'll pick up practice 4 and 5 on Friday and Saturday, with another off day on Sunday, and then kind of get ourselves into the heat of fall camp here the next 2 weeks. But with that said, I'll certainly open up to you guys for any questions you might have for me.
Now, what does David Montgomery bring to your program on the field and off?
Yeah, I think the starting point for David, for me, is off the field, because, one of the things that's been really unique about David is one of those guys that when you talk about having a program of sustained success, I've always believed your best players have to be your hardest workers. And David embodies that in every way, shape, and form. He is relentless at his craft. He's a guy that is, we almost have to literally get him out of this facility at night because he wants to be here constantly. And so, I think what he has done, some of the success that he was able to have at the end of last year, gave him some credibility with his teammates. And what he's been able to do is he's been able to take the Jaquan Baileys and some of these guys around him, and he's been able to, great players have this unique ability to make others around them great. And he's really had the ability to have a tremendous impact on our football program and our football team because of how he prepares and what his work ethic and his commitment's like. And it's been really, really fun to watch him grow in his own game. I think his high-end potential is maybe as good as any running back that I've had the ability to coach. And we've got some really good running backs in that room right now that all have great potential. But David's certainly special, and both on and off the football field.
He's a 1,000-yard rusher this year, given the fact that you're going to throw the heck out of the ball.
Yeah, I think that number, whatever that number is, David's one of those guys that, and again, Michael's got some of this, and, Johnny Lang's got some of this, Kene, when healthy, has got some of this, Shelton even has got some of this. Is what I like about our backfield right now is those guys are so multiple. They can catch the ball in the backfield, running back position. Sometimes when you line them up as wide receivers, you can motion them out of the backfield, you can create matchups that can really help you. And all those guys have that ability to do that, but especially David. I think David's one of those guys that if he was one of our receivers, he'd be one of our top 4 receivers out there too, because he's just got that kind of ball skill. And you go back to him, he's a high school quarterback, his last 2 years, and a guy that really understands offensive football. So, whatever he is, he's going to be a major piece of it, whether it's catching the ball or running the football for us.
Now, where does the defensive line rank among your biggest concerns heading into the season in terms of position group?
Well, I don't know about, concern in terms of, having played live reps. I think I'm really excited about what that group looks like right now. 3 days into fall camp, that's the group that's made the absolute most improvement from the end of spring practice into where we are. And a little bit of that improvement is getting some of the young freshmen that have come in and joined our football program. Some of it is getting Matt Leo and Ray Lima of, not only did they get spring practice, but now they've had an entire summer with us. Some of it's getting, Jaquan Bailey and any that have grown in our program over the last, 9 months, and now they've had a full summer here to develop and get, guys, Jaquan Bailey's 260 pounds, and, I told Jaquan it looked like, he had a tire on his tummy last year during football season. Now he looks like he looks like a statue, of what defensive ends should look like, and he went from 260 pounds to 290 pounds, and, and so to me, I think we've grown a great deal. We look the part in a lot of ways, but now it's that opportunity to say, are you concerned? Yeah, I think concerned is probably maybe the wrong word, but I'm apprehensive to crown them kings either. There's still a lot to be proven of that group, and we need a great fall camp. we need to show we can make plays and be disciplined under the lights. So to me, I think there's a lot of anticipation and maybe apprehension, to still see that group grow day in, day out. But so far, it's been really fun to watch that group because I think there's a lot of talent there.
We've asked a lot about Joel at linebacker, but when do you think you'll know how and how much you might use him offensively this season?
Yeah, I can already tell you, Joel Lanning's going to play offense this year for us, and I think how much is probably be dictated by situational football as we get into it, as we really we already know what Joel Lanning can do for us on offense, and so for me, it's a matter of we're starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together. What are we? Who are we? Who are our best players on that side of the football? Situationally, where does it make sense to bring Joel into the football game for us to have success? What do we want to have him do? And I think a lot of that as fall camp kind of continues to develop and see what we are as a football team and what we need will certainly dictate that a little bit. But I definitely, you can count on seeing Joel Lanning play offensive football for the Cyclones this fall.
What can expectations be like for Jacob Park, given he's had a full off season now and he's had time to kind of settle in and really kind of hone what he can do? I guess it seems like it's been a while since he's really been in one place for this amount of time. What can that do for him going into this year?
Jacob, and the nice thing for all of us is we've seen some of his high moments, some of his moments where he's played really good football, and when you've watched that, you've seen a guy that has the ability at this level in a Power 5 conference in the Big 12 play at a really high rate. And so we already know what when he's playing his best looks like. Now it's a matter of taking those last 6 months and creating that consistency in those rough edges and smoothing those out and really giving him the confidence of here's our offensive playbook. Here's what our expectation of you on a day in, day out basis is, and having that ability to be consistent. And I think his ability level is as high as any quarterback that I've certainly had the ability to coach. He's got elite arm strength. He's got the ability to make all the throws. He's elusive. He can create, and move in the pocket. All those things that you want from a quarterback. But what's been really enjoyable about Jacob Park is to watch his growth, even the first 3 days of practice. I think you leave the first 3 days of practice, you say, you know what, there's a guy that really feels comfortable in what he's doing offensively. So, we're excited about Jacob. Jacob is, again, now you're saying by 5 games really into where he's been the starter. So there's going to continue to be growth in his career. But if he continues to go the way he's going and he's shown to go so far, I think he's got a chance to have a great career here.
Matt, you talked about having to teach this team how to win last year. And how have you seen that growth in that aspect, and how do you continue to teach that with this year's group?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us was to teach those invaluable lessons of one word you said is how to be a team, and then 2, what's a team look like when you're trying to compete to now win games. And I'll even start this off. Everybody knows I've talked so much about the process to get there, but I think the end of last football season, winning some of those games, and really for me it was losing some of those really close, hard, tough games last year that were invaluable learning experiences for our football team. And what we were able to do this off season is we were able to really understand that, hey, this is what we were talking about. It got to the fourth quarter of some of those games and we're inches away, or there's a play here and a play there that we don't make that. But yet a year ago in that off season, we weren't putting the time and effort to make those plays. And I think what our kids did is they carried those lessons, and some of those, I think we learned so much more sometimes by when things don't go well, that I think we were able to really couple that with a great off season, a great summer, and put that together to prepare ourselves for now what is fall camp. And so a huge part of the process now is how do we get ourselves ready for the early part of the season. One of the unique things here is you're talking to there is no ease into the football season. It's not, hey, let's take the first 4 games and feel our way into it. You got to be ready to go from day one. And so I think now that's the next learning curve, is how are you ready? There's only 12 guaranteed opportunities. How do we prepare ourselves to be ready to be consistent through 12 games in a college football season, and then see what happens from there. So I think there's certainly been great growth, and really excited about the continued growth of learning what it takes to sustain success.
Matt, for you personally, what was the biggest difference walking in here today when you walked into media day this time last year, a year ago?
You know, probably the biggest thing for me is knowing really who our football team is. You know, a year ago, you know, I think the apprehension not only from myself but our entire staff is you're 6 months into a brand new football team and, you know, trying to create trust and belief within the walls of your program, but also yet trying to uncover what your players can and can't do. I think now we've got a really, not only do we have a really good understanding of what our kids can and can't do, but also the ability to give them the tools over the last 6 to 7 months to enhance their own development and start to really create development within our walls, you know, and that to me is the essence of football program. It's not just go recruit guys and get good players here. It's really develop those people within your walls and give them the tools and resources to have sustained success. And I think that we feel really comfortable with, even though we've only been here now a year and a half, that we've been able to give some of those tools, and it's been fun to watch some of our improvement. Some tight ends now, so that part's a positive. But Chase Allen, Dylan Sainer, Sam Harms, that group is a really talented group. Charlie Kolar came in this class, so we now have at least 4 tight ends that are on the team, which is certainly a positive. Sam Seambuckner was a huge asset. I think sometimes he gets lost in our mix of guys that were a huge asset. You know, we moved Sam from linebacker to kind of that F position, tight end, fullback. And that guy, when we played our best football last year, that guy was a major factor. He allowed us to run the football. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. You know, he's reminded us in 3 days of practice how good of a football player he is. And I know Chase is certainly getting a lot of attention, and deservedly so. Chase is a really talented young guy. Dylan Sanders, 270 pounds, and he's 6'6", and we don't have many guys in our program that look like that and runs about a 4.75 40. So, you know, having guys like that are assets to our program, it's going to be really fun to have. Ultimately, we want to get to the point where our running game and our ability to run the football is a huge positive, and tight ends are a need for that to happen because you can create gaps and create run lanes. But again, not to be negative, but it's great to finally have some tight ends in the program that we can develop and we can really work to start to build what we want to do offensively. Are we there yet, and are those young guys there yet? Boy, those are still, you're talking redshirt freshmen that are just growing, they're puppies. We'll use them as they're able to help us as our football team continues to grow.
At that wide receiver Z position, what's it going to take for one of those 3 to separate themselves as the top guy at that spot?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I think that's going to be a really fun race. You're talking Marchie Murdoch, who really came off of an incredible spring. Marchie didn't get here a year ago. You know, he was that graduate transfer with 2 years left, and Marchie didn't get here till literally the day of fall camp a year ago because he was finishing up his schoolwork at Illinois. So, you know, Marchie kind of made his way through the season a year ago, and all of a sudden, you know, you go through spring practice, you're like, wow, this guy is really playing high-end football, and that's what I love about seniors. You know, when the hourglass is turned and the sand's starting to run out, all of a sudden, sometimes you see that spark finally come, that it becomes elite. And Marchie's one of those guys that has just incredible spirit, incredible work ethic, and a guy that's right now really put himself into the top of the list. You know, you look at you know, that whole group. Matt Eaton's got to be a guy you want to talk about. Hakeem Butler, maybe the most talented wide receiver in our entire wide receiver room. You know, when you really cut it open and look at it, who had a great spring and's really had a great summer as well. So I think there's high-end playing time available right now for that wide receiver group, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it all shakes out and what happens over the course of time. That's a good problem to have, though. There's finally competition. You go out every day to practice, and, you know, it doesn't matter who you are. You better be ready to go, because if not, you know, the ball's coming your way really fast, and if you can't catch it, the next guy will, and it'll be tough for you to regain that momentum, I think, right now. So a lot of competition is a great thing for our football team and our program.
1 year under the belt for the Big 12, what have you learned from this past season? And I guess what do you hope to incorporate from what you learned into this second year of the Big 12?
Yeah, I think the biggest whether it's the biggest lesson learned, but I don't know style of play, what the play looks like, all things that probably expected and what I thought. The biggest thing that it is, everybody's got a great quarterback at this level. You're not going to play a quarterback that can't beat you. And so I think at the end of it, that's probably the biggest lesson learned. And, you need to go and play some of these guys, understand what they're trying to do structurally, offensively and defensively. I think anytime that happens and you get to see it for a year, that's certainly a positive rather than just on videotape. But, I think so much more about us and about learning about who we are rather than learning about, what the Big 12 is. And we've got a lot of respect for certainly everybody in this conference, but I think it was a lot more growing process on us than everybody else.
Mike Warren seemed to have a little bit, Mike Warren had a breakout freshman season, had a little bit of a sophomore slump. So two-part question. What does Mike Warren have to do to bounce back from that sophomore slump? And then what does David Montgomery have to do to avoid that sophomore slump?
Yeah, I think Mike's journey is first of all, just get healthy again, and Mike did that. I talked about Mike, this spring, and Mike could have easily said, hey, we're gonna go play somewhere else. Things didn't go well early on, but I think that was the biggest part of Mike Warren's journey, in my opinion, is Mike said, I am going to really get myself back to A, getting healthy, B, my craft, and putting the time and effort and work that, Mike had to do all those things, especially when you're dinged up, you really got to get yourself healthy. And Mike had an incredible spring. Probably one of the guys that when you talk about we have a champions club, and you talk about the winter, you talk about spring practice, you talk about the summer. Mike's one of those guys that was in it all 3 quarters for our champions club now going into the season. When you do that, that gives you a chance to really have a chance to reach your full potential. And what Mike's done is, I think Mike has really come with a purpose to get himself back to where he wants to be. And I'm really proud of Mike. I couldn't be prouder of him. And, him and David together are a really great 1-2 combination. And, David, again, it's never worrying, the sophomore slump, all those things, those are all just terms. It's really about the ability to stay true to what your process is to be successful day in and day out, and that's why we talk about that all the time, and something that we really harp on consistently.